Hey everyone, I'm Candace. Thanks for coming to my podcast. This is about you. It's me time. I am happy to be here with you tonight. Tonight's episode is going to pick off a little bit from where we left off last week. We were talking about breaking the identity with victimhood, shifting out of survival mode, and post rape, learning to self love. So tonight we're going to shift more into self love, how to turn into magic. And with that, I am going to start off with the definition of the word miracle, because this isn't something that I learned until about a week ago. And since then, I've been really noticing how things have been playing out in my life in such a beautiful way. And we're going to start here. So the word miracle is a noun. It is a surprising and welcome event that is not explicable by nature or scientific laws, and is therefore considered to be the work of a divine agency. And I just thought that that was so beautiful, because how many times has miracles played out in my life, and I had no idea that that's what they were at the time. They were disguised as either traumas or heartache or rough times or stumbling blocks or speed bumps or one thing after the other when it comes to the unmanageability that my life became after trauma. And I'm here to tell you that I'm a miracle, and so are you. And I'm going to tell you why. So, with that being said, I'm going to just dive into it. So, shifting from survival mode to self love is not an easy process. It's complicated and it's messy, and it sometimes feels like your heart is bleeding onto the floor right in front of you. And the only way to stop it is to use or to numb out or to find something to fill that wound. And all the time knowing that what's inside of me and what's bleeding out is bleeding out of me for a reason. I truly believe that crying is such a detox and cleansing, and we need to go through those emotional cleanses and shifts to allow room and space within ourselves to be able to find a sense of pause, peace, and clarity to be able to move forward and make decisions. And it's quite the leap going from, excuse me, it's quite the leap going from victimhood and in such a vulnerable, traumatic state, while trying to count on outside resources and trying to ask people for advice, all while trying to also keep up with the daily life of paying bills and being caught in this system and this cycle that we're all exposed to and entrapped in. So it's a really hard place to be, but I want to let you know that you can do it. It's not impossible. And one of the most powerful things that I can remember learning to do was to say no to other people, because that allowed me the space within myself to say yes to myself. And the people that it hurt, or the people that it bothered, were the people that were benefiting from my lack of boundaries in the first place. And so I wasn't really sorry to put up my boundaries there, because at the end of the day, I did what I needed to do for me. And at the beginning, it was really difficult. I didn't like to make people uncomfortable or make people upset. And I had a really deep-seated fear of abandonment for a really long time that stemmed from really childhood. And it can still creep up sometimes, but the first step in dealing with that was acknowledging it, acknowledging that I had a fear of abandonment, and then acknowledging why and where that came from for me and where that started and how it plays out in my life current time. And when I started to take a look at this, things really started to shift in my life because it allowed me opportunities to see where it was affecting me. And it allowed me to make decisions differently because recognizing that I don't have to make decisions based off of a state of what other people will think of me if I do or don't do this, or what my boyfriend at the time or person that I'm with, or even friends and family. Because at the end of the day, I know what's best for me, just like you know what's best for you. And not to say that in an arrogant sense where not taking advice and being closed off to other people's perspectives is any sort of right thing to do. In fact, it's quite the opposite. Is the point that I'm trying to get across, is opening up my mind to other people's perspectives and taking a look at myself without emotion. Because as soon as I separate emotion from reality, it really changes the game for me, the game of life. And so that kind of became a practice and a new way of thinking. It created like new pathways in my brain for me to at least use as an option if I wasn't comfortable with them, or even if I dipped into people pleasing, for example. I would still know that there is an option to say no, and then I would be upset and frustrated with myself about it. But then I, I was the only person to blame for that because I had control over the situation because I control myself. And so I started learning how to separate my emotions from decision making. And I made it, excuse me, I made a deal with myself as to not make decisions at night. I had set up boundaries with myself like that. And just different things like not making decisions when I'm emotionally charged was a great way of saying it, especially in the beginning, because like emotionally charged could mean anything. That could mean fear-based. That could mean I'm running off of self-will. It could mean that I'm running off of whatever it is. It's not my divine purpose. And therefore I know that my calm state that I want tomorrow is not going to want me running off of those emotions today. And so I needed to learn how to practice harnessing those emotions and taking that energy and transferring it into something productive and something that could help me build my life. And I didn't know how to do that. And so I started learning about what other people did and different thought patterns that successful people do, because I started learning that birds of a feather flock together. And I started to learn that if I hang out with turkeys, I'm not going to learn to act like an eagle. That really changed perspective for me because I had a choice. I had a choice if I wanted to show up as the person that I wanted to become, or if I wanted to show up as the person that I had always been up until this point. And that was powerful. It was painful. It was not comfortable. It brought up a whole new sense of fear within me because like I had fear at this point of like, oh my gosh, I have something to give, which means I have something to lose. And if I have something to gain, then that means that I have, like I was in this totally new space that I had never been in before. And it was really feeling like kind of exploring uncharted waters, like uncharted territory. I didn't know what was going to happen next. And I felt by myself, but I felt adventurous and excited. And that fear that had manifested itself inside of me, that deep fear from a long time ago, I was able to take a look at that and say, I can't deal with you right now. What can I do about it? So what I decided to do, instead of putting my belief and my energy into something invisible like fear, I decided, how can I turn this into faith? How can I turn what the fear that I have today into something that's useful for me later or for tomorrow? Because tomorrow I am going to wake up and I know that I want to live this life now. And within that, I want the best life tomorrow that I possibly can have today, even if I don't feel like I'm worth it, because this started on such a small scale. At first, it was just staying sober through the day. And then it was trying to show people that I care. And then it was helping people. And then it grew different ways. And throughout all of that, I was able to take the feelings that I had around fear or within different situations and apply that to different areas of my life. So I learned to channel the energy of fear and turn it into faith, because fear and faith cannot live in the same space. It's like light and dark existing at once. It doesn't happen that way. And therefore, applying that logic to my life, I have been able to find this divine power that was with me the whole time, that has turned me into this miracle. Because not only do miracles happen every day, but they happen whether I see them or not. And I don't want to miss any miracles. Like, I have so many choices today. I have choices in how I deal with my problems, with how I deal with my family, with how I deal with myself, with how I choose to show up in the world. And you do too. You can decide for yourself who you want to be, and whether you want to shift into self-love and into self-discovery and into self-acceptance, because that is such another big piece of this self-acceptance. Like, it's not the same as self-love, but for me, self-acceptance was like the key that allowed me to shift into a place of taking a peek at self-love. And that uh, opened up doors in which I was able to learn to love myself. I remember learning, like, what colors do I like, like a whole brand new world. I felt like a newborn when I first stopped drinking and I started taking a look at all of my stuff. And it was so beautiful, for the first year I'm walking around on like little Bambi deer legs and just like slipping all over the ice. But that's what life is about. But those mistakes that I made during my first year, my second year, my third year, that's what I want to come on here and talk about, because I made a lot of mistakes post-trauma, early recovery, and I don't want you to have to go through those necessarily. And like another big one for me was like, I remember when I stopped. I was gonna go out and meet somebody off of an app one time, and some lady in recovery was like, "Nope, you sit down right here, like you're not going anywhere." And I was like so mad at her, but at the end of the day, it was somebody outside myself, literally like sitting me down, being like, "No, you don't use this bad behavior anymore," and it stuck with me, and that gave me a choice, because before that, I didn't even really like see enough worth in myself to even like put down the app, because even knowing that anybody that I found online was toxic. And now learning about this miraculous divine power that's outside of myself, I've like learned so much about technology and the apps that we use to date and to validate ourselves. And it's really dangerous. Like, it's really horribly dangerous, because choosing to place a an artificial intelligence ideo ideologically, I think I said that probably wrong, but it's idolizing it, putting it first above an organic connection. And I think it's so important to talk about this, because not only are organic connections being taken away and replaced with technology, but I didn't even like give myself the opportunity or thought process to even meet somebody organically or do things the right way, all while knowing that all I was going to find on that app was toxic. And then it was going through these lessons and learning the things that I did, where I started like raising the bar for myself and raising the standards for myself. And it's just like, what am I going to do about it? And, I haven't been on dating apps in quite some time now, but I just wanted to touch on that for a second, because like, you don't need somebody outside of yourself to love you. If you're lonely, then you can become your best friend, because what I've learned just through my own experience is that like, the more that I can love myself and give the attention and love that I would give to somebody else, back to myself, it shows me that I can handle what I want to give, because I need to be clear on what I want to bring to the table before I can expect anything from anybody else. And that's another thing too, is I can't expect anything from anybody else, because expectations just lead to disappointments. And therefore, all I can do is pour into my own cup and do the next right thing to prepare myself to be who I want to be in another timeline. And the amount of time that it takes for me to get to that timeline from where I'm at depends on me. So if you're like me and you're out there wanting to shift timelines from one timeline to the next, whether that's from victimhood to survival mode to self-love to self-acceptance to self-forgiveness, which is another topic that I'm going to make another video on. Maybe I'll do that next Thursday, because self-forgiveness is such a beautiful conversation and that needs to be talked about more. But tonight, when we're talking about self-love and the magic that it gets entangled in with it, it just is something to be said for the depth and the weight, to the profoundness that can be seen in life when we have the ability to see it. And for me, I don't know about you, you can maybe let me know in the comments below, but I need to have a clear head in order to receive messages and in order to find that gut feeling as clearly as I want to, because for my head and my heart, my gut and everything to be in alignment with it myself, I can't be carrying around baggage of the past. And that's why I'm so passionate about sharing the fact that if you've been traumatized, if you've been hurt, if you've been assaulted by somebody, if you've been backstabbed or betrayed, like, that are just not yours to carry. These acts that people take towards each other because they're hurt themselves, they hurt other people, because hurt people hurt people. And that is a quote from my first book. I've said it before on my podcast. I've said it in real life. I truly believe it to the core. Hurt people hurt people, but healed people heal people. So there's another step to that. And so once I learned why I was hurting, I stopped myself from hurting other people to break the cycle, figured out what I need to do to heal, and then help heal other people. And so you can do this too. If you're in a place of stagnation or of frustration or of even self-pity, like, if it's time to just say, okay, I can do this, to, get back up on that horse, then let me be your words of wisdom to do it, because I'm sitting here telling you about the magic that I found within self-love. And as soon as I decided to hang on to that for dear life, and that I was worth it, it was a complete game changer. Because looping back around to back at the beginning of this podcast, talking about boundaries and saying yes to myself and saying no to other people, because yes, it kind of sucks in the beginning to say no to other people when they really want me to do something, or, like, you know what I mean? I want to make other people happy. I want to be helpful. I want to be there for them. But I've learned that if it's not good for me, then it's not good for me. And that's okay. And other people, they can accept that. And once other people accept my boundary and I accept my boundary, I feel so harmonious with what could have been such a catastrophe or such a problem or so much emotions that I could have ended up dumping into that situation when I really didn't need to, because I've learned to set boundaries, and you can too. And that's the magic. There's a freedom in that allows me to set myself free, because this simple, not easy, but simple act of honoring my true self and honoring what I want and what I need out of myself and who I need to be to show up in the best version of myself that I possibly can is changing every day, and it's evolving. And I truly believe that snowball start or no, I should say it started when I stopped blaming other people for my problems. Once I started taking accountability, and admitting my powerlessness and how unmanageable my life had become because of my own choices and because of other people's choices. But it didn't matter whose choices they were that got me into the situation. At that time, the point was is that I was in that situation, and what am I going to do about it? Because, even not wanting to live, like, that's a really hard place to be when other people are taking away coping mechanisms. And, like, I'm not really looking to pick up other negative coping mechanisms. I don't need more addictions. You know what I mean? And so when I was left with nothing but healing as an option, like healing or death, and it's a weird gray area for a while. But you know what? I had a choice. I had a choice, and you do too. So I think that that's pretty good for a podcast tonight. Stay tuned for next week when we talk about self-forgiveness. It's one of my favorite topics to talk about next to gratitude and magic, of course. So thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And if you haven't already, hit that like button, comment, subscribe, share with somebody that's going to maybe take something from this. There's a lot that I kind of spit out tonight, but I feel like somebody out there needs to hear it. And I will see you next week. Thank you again for listening.